Hi, my name is Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So many of you who have been following the project and my work will recognize this set of composite images with the sacred geometry being the structure of a hydrodynamic vortex. And in here we see the first one, which really let me understand what was going on. And this is in Suhas Rao-Carr's ultrasonic water column. I filmed in 2017 in Mumbai. And the bubbles are showed when there is a depressurization. And you can see this whole area in this clover shaped structure, and these two beams coming down on the golden ratio. You can see the little notch here and the little notch here. And then this depressurization zone here, which will pull this area of water and bubbles into the core up here. And it would also pull in other structures that were forming in the water. So this taught me that there were areas of depressurization in these structures. Later, when the ultra experiment came along in 2019, following a happy accident when trying to clean some indium foil, my colleague Alan Goldwater led to this, with Alan Cusk doing the first aluminium. And you can see here the torsion effect and the material coming in here of the yin-yang structure. So that is water. Now, later cavitation experiments, this one was conducted in August 2021, showed both the yin-yang structure, yang on this side and yin on this side, matter being disassembled on this side, leaving boron from aluminium, which means oxygen has been pulled out of the atoms here and comes round here into this spiral galaxy type structure. And this had over here some calcium without boron, and calcium, some isotopes, are aluminium plus oxygen. So this is a fission and fusion process where oxygen has been ripped from the matter. And similar kind of thing was observed with the Mars gas on tungsten, where down in this part, which is this disruption zone down here, this kind of area here, there was some material of the bar of tungsten, and this wavy line here on one side of the vortex here is like a carbon film over here. So in this case we had oxygen being ripped out, triple alpha, and in this case we had carbon being ripped out. At least, of course, maybe oxygen was coming in here as well, and there was a range of sort of typical stellar synthesis elements in this magneto-hydrodynamic vortex. Of course, this is a hydrodynamic vortex, this is a hydrodynamic vortex, this is a hydrodynamic vortex, which we eventually found was actually also magneto-hydrodynamic, and this is in plasma, and so is this in Henk Urian's experiment. And this is a cross-section. You see it goes in the top there and comes out the bottom here, and goes in the top there and comes out the bottom here, and we've discussed this at length. And this is the caduceus. This is actually showing the vortex coming in, and you can see how it would form the clover leaf. You can see it kind of looks like it's almost partially going through, but I think it gets to the point of the Ukon Fasara and gets pulled over to the side. So that's what leads to this clover leaf shape, in my view. And then there is the patent drawing of Frank Polifka's Windex, and this takes matter apart on a macro scale, like aluminum turns to a fine powdered dust, and also glass, silicon dioxide. Now, something is causing that matter to fall apart. In this case, in the subtor, it is causing aluminium to fall apart. In this case, in the main tor, it is causing tungsten and or the small component 2.5% of thorium to fall apart and produce this carbon film here. The at least depressurization here, and the torsional flow here, and the torsional flow here is all witnessed, and the same kind of thing goes on in the wind hex. And so this is the 2D structure, and in other work you can have a look at this, which is synthetic electromagnetic knot in a 3-dimensional skyrmion. This is a model for kind of like a ball lightning structure. And it was in Nature, this particular paper, synthetic monopole here, and they actually did this in 2009 and then actually observed it here in a Bose-Einstein condensate. So this is the synthetic calculated one, and this is what is observed in this cross-section in the Bose-Einstein condensate. And then this is the top-down view. So this is the elevation and this is the plan. And this is the actual thing that is observed in the Bose-Einstein condensate. And I have argued that this is spin one way, spin zero, spin the other way, is perfectly represented by the magnetohydrodynamic structure that is in the sacred geometry form, as I show you here. And also our magnetohydrodynamic 2-Tor sub-Tor structure, just like in the water cavitation, is a better representation because you actually see this kind of S shape here with a kind of flat line and a flat line. Again, this is not a perfect hole like their mathematics produce, and again this is showing a different spin structure, which is quite similar to having a dome over here of red and a dome over here of red, showing that there is that fractal structure. And when you overlay the data from these, you end up by seeing that it is near perfect match. So if we go to the edge of the boundary here, you can see that the spin 0 is around the Tor itself. The spin flip, the Ukon Vasara, this part here is above, and below you have the spin the other way. And when you come down to the plan view, you can see how that completely matches up and kind of shows how you would end up with a vortex in the center and the different arrangement of the spin in the center compared to the other view. Well, this is one concept for a coherent matter based skyrmion or kind of ball lightning like object. The other one is a microwave-like object, and these are the same kind of structure. You can look at the link down here, relativistic microwave theory of ball lightning. Here it is. And again, in this case, you need a 4-Tor structure to show what they observe here with this Tor in the center. The important thing here is the field energy density in the core is very, very high, and so on. We discussed this in a previous presentation, but it certainly is reasonably explained by the same structure here. Now, of course, Ken Shoulders was talking about microball lightning in his work being a version, or what it is, of his exotic vacuum objects. And here is a diagram, and if we go to his patent called energy conversion using high charge density, this is patent number 5018180 from May the 21st, 1991. You can see this image here of figure 60 and 61. This is a schematic of an approximate exotic vacuum object, a single one, and this is a chain of 10. And the interesting thing is that if we look at this, and I've slightly reorganized it here, and we look at our layers here, we can overlay our plan schematic of what we have observed here, and you can see that in this plane, the from the top-down view, you end up with a boundary here and an inner boundary, and then also if these merge together, then you get a kind of boundary in the center. he's only got two boundaries, but that's from this view. If you go to the other view of our structures, for instance, in these views, we have a main tornado coming in, and then we have a spin jet that comes out, a coherent matter and or gravity beam that comes out of the top of this, and you can imagine these linking together into these clustered groups like this 10 substructure here. And we've certainly seen clusters of less and more exotic vacuum object substructures. He draws this in the same way as the core, so I would suggest that this is the main core, and that the second layer out here is the non-radiating boundary. And so I thought to myself, well, what did he actually refer to 800 and 801? So I looked at his patent, and I was rather blown away. So here it says, and this is bearing in mind prior to 1991 or thereabouts in 1991, he says, as best as can be determined at present, the shape of an exotic vacuum object called electrum validium back in 1991 is most likely generally spherical. Okay, well, we can buy that, but maybe toric. Okay, and could have fine structure. Okay, so that's to say that it's spherical or toroidal based on the witness marks he's seen, and that it might have some structure inside of it, as schematically illustrated in figure 60. So figure 60 is this. So, it's generally spherical or might be toroidic, toric inside. He says, an EV is illustrated as having a central sphere 800 of contained electrons surrounded by an electromagnetic field 801. So in here he's saying there could be some fine structure, but he's not saying what it is, not determining what it is to the best of his determination. There is a core, and then outside of that there is a field, an electromagnetic field, which stops. It doesn't go out. It doesn't indicate that it's going out. It goes out to a point and stops. I believe this is representing a zero electromagnetic field on the boundary here, and the fields are inside of this. This, in my view, is Ken Shoulders telling us that this is a non-radiating boundary. And in his description to his 1986 book, he refers to it as a perfect oscillating monopole, and it's the same description as a anapole, which has a non-radiating boundary. So absolutely, in my determination, he is saying that there is, as he says here, something spherical, possibly toric, and could have fine structure, so there's something maybe going on in that center, as schematically illustrated in figure 60, and it has this central sphere of contained electrons. That is where all the electrons are, possibly with some fine structure, but we're not saying what it is, and an electromagnetic field. It says coupling between exotic vacuum objects produces quasi-stable structures. So he's saying this is a quasi-stable structure coupled together. However, lone EVs are rarely observed. EVs exhibit a tendency to link up like beads in a chain. For example, as schematically illustrated in figure 61, wherein the EV beads in the chain may be somewhat free to rotate or twist about each other under the influence of external forces or internal forces. The chains, which are closed, so these could, they could rotate for sure, on the axis of linking up, but they could also be semi-flexible, also in the forward and backwards through the page view, if you can imagine that. And certainly explains many observations that we have seen each other under the influence of external forces or internal forces. The chains which are closed may be observed to form ring-like structures as large as 20 micrometers. We've certainly seen them that size. And multiple chains may also unite and mutually align in relatively ordered fashion. In the chain 810 of figure 61, the 10 EVs marked here are shown generally in a circular pattern. Spacing of the EVs in a chain is normally approximately equal to the diameter of the individual beads. Spacing of one chain ring from another. So basically this is like. They're attracted but also repelled from each other. Okay? And so they're self-organizing. Spacing of EV beads in a chain is normally approximately equal to the diameter of the individual beads. Spacing of one chain ring from another is of the order of one ring diameter. So you can have wheels within wheels within wheels. A 1 micrometer wide ring of 10 EV beads, which is the typical number of beads in a chain, may include 10 to the 12 electron charges. Individual EV beads may be observed within a chain ring. An EV entity, which is in the nature of a non-neutral electron plasma, is most strongly bound, with the binding force between EV beads in a chain being weaker. So, the EV entity is most strongly bound, and the binding between EV beads in a bead chain is less strongly bound, and finally the binding between chains of beads being the weakest. So the inner wheel, the core wheel, is the strongest. Then a wheel made of the core wheels is less strong, and then a wheel made of these structures is even weaker. A wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And we see this in the breakup of these structures in Benjamin Huang's reactor. However, all of the binding energies appear to be greater than chemical binding energy of materials. So reading this and assuming that this is toric, producing a tor, and one of these tors producing a tor of tors, he is suggesting in his patent from 1991 that these could potentially be wheels within wheels within wheels. And most importantly, all of the binding energies are higher than all chemical binding energies. Therefore, they can tear through matter should they choose. Okay, so that being said, what I want to do this weekend, and I urge you to pay attention to the presentation I'm going to make on Sunday night, and that will be for your calendar, Sunday the 11th of May. I will be discussing a email that I sent to Orion Energy key players back in 4 years ago, in 2021, almost exactly 4 years ago from the presentation date. And I described what I thought was actually in an exotic vacuum object. Not just the electrons, but what is actually in there. And I think that we have solved this problem. I think we know, or will know, with pretty good high degree of certainty, how these things form. I've already laid out the broad brushstrokes, but how they form precisely, what they end up capturing into the core, and what form of the matter that's in there, how that self-sustains itself once it's built to a particular level, the mode of decay, and how it produces what you see on these and many other experiments: a torsional disruption field, a torsional beam, how it can rip matter apart, and how it can produce newly synthesized nuclei. I think it's done. Join me this Sunday.